Again, welcome everyone and good morning. And thank you for joining this morning. And we will start as usual, watching the breath for a few moments. Then we can try to cultivate good intention by thinking, reflecting, contemplating. May our coming here together be inspirations and have an imprint in our mind and become cause and condition to actualize all the lamrim realizations within the mind stream of oneself and all sentient beings. And especially the realization of both Chitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. And through those realizations, may we be able to obtain fully awakened state, the Buddhahood, for the greatest help and benefit of all sentient beings. It may always be source of happiness and help for other sentient beings. And may we never be source of pain and suffering to others. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create relation to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodam soge sonam la chanchu kato dane kyabsa. Dagi sheshe kipe sonam kya. Dola penje sangye dovash. Sangye chodam soge sonam la chanchu kato dane. Dagi sheshe kipe sonam kya. Dola penje sangye dovash. So last week we kind of discussed overall view of the practice of six perfections or six paramita, and which and we finished verse number 100 from the Lama Choba. And then from the verse number, next verse, 101, then it start more detail on those 6 perfections or paramita. And as you can see, the first of 6 paramita or perfections is the practice of training in the perfection of generosity. And so, yeah, if we read the verse, it says, I seek your blessings to complete the perfection of generosity through the guideline teachings for increasing the mind that gives without attachments. And namely, transforming my body, wealth, and merits of virtues of 3 times into the object desired by each and every sentient beings. So again, with every practice, all different topic of the practice that we discuss, when we do meditate, first is always trying to, generate the, refuge and merit field, and then trying to generate good intention, motivations, and then, refuge and bodhicitta, then if you can, for immeasurable 7 limbs, and then you make a heartfelt request to the merit and refuge and merit field to, to help us, to guide us, to bless us, to perfect and complete whatever spiritual path and practice we are trying to engage into, and especially whatever particular practice of meditation we are training during that time. So here, of course, is a generosity, so that we ask for the guidance, inspirations, help, blessings, so that we can perfect the practice of generosity. And so that we apply that to all different verses and with all different practices, And so then after you have that, you can do, if you can, then you can do cleansing and purifying all your negativities, especially in these cases, the obstacles to perfect the practice of generosity, which is the stinginess, miserliness, that mind, being totally cleansed and purified, and receiving all the blessings, and especially, receiving the blessing of the practice of generosity or realization of generosity. After having done that, it could take, it can do in 2-3 minutes, you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on however long you do. And then you actually try to do whatever practice meditations, actual subject meditations that you are trying to. So that is why in each of the verse where that comes, please, I see your blessings, So that is, so if we start all the practice with that, then definitely it will be more helpful, more beneficial. Then going into the practice immediately, straight in whatever practice we are doing without the preliminary practices, So, so then coming to the actual here, the practice itself. So it is the practice of generosity. I would like to discuss, the benefit of generosity first, and then maybe what the generosity mean, and then what are the generous, how we can practice the generosity, yeah, like that way. So first of all, it is good to understand and know the benefit of the practice of generosity. The more we understand the benefit of the generosity, the more we will be inspired to practice. If we don't understand the benefit of the practice of generosity, then we will be less inspired to practice. And that is same with any practice. So there are many benefit of the practice of generosity. First of all, by practicing generosity, we are able to help someone through your practice of generosity. We are able to reduce someone's pain and sufferings. We are able to, eliminate a certain level of their suffering and pain for a certain level of time. So release them from whatever sufferings they might be experiencing due to lack of something. And so therefore we are able to relieve the pain and suffering of someone. And then when we practice with that, wanting to help someone with that, then it help our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta to further grow. Each time we do that, then it help our love. It's like putting water to your loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. Each time we do that, it's like watering the plant of your loving kindness, compassion. That help our loving kindness, compassion to become more stronger, to grow further. So it helps others, it helps our spiritual realizations, our spiritual and inner positive qualities such as love and compassion to grow further, to become a bit more stronger. So, and the more our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta grow, become more stronger, the more closer we become, closer and closer. It leads more closer and closer to the enlightenment, closer and closer to the enlightenment. It leads us closer and closer to the enlightenment. Then, also through the practice of generosity, when we train in the practice of generosity, it helps us to overcome, those negative afflictive emotions, such as, stinginess, miserliness, meanness, feeling of carelessness, indifferenceness, So it helps us to reduce those, those kind of afflictive emotions. Where we feel when we have that kind of, when you have those afflictive emotions, then we always, no matter externally how much you have, you always feel poor inside. We have the mentality of poor, You might have lots externally, but still in your mind, you feel you have not enough. The mentality of poor, always feeling I don't have enough to give, enough to share. Whereas when we practice the practice of generosity, as our practice of generosity as we train in that, as our practice of generosity get more stronger, bigger, then regardless of what your external, how much you have or how little you have the mentality of richness. Rich, you always feel you have more than enough to share, to give. And wouldn't imagine how miserable it is when we have this poor mentality, always feeling not enough, always feeling not enough to give, not enough to share, basically feeling not enough. On the other hand, how joyful we are when we have this rich mentality where you feel I have more than enough to share, to give, always feeling there's more, always feeling you have so much, regardless of externally how much you have, but that kind of attitude, that kind of mentality, that kind of state of mind make a huge difference, whether your life become more miserable or more happier. If we have that poor mentality, then it becomes more miserable. But if you have this mentality of rich mentality, then you become more happier, more joyful in your life, regardless of what the external conditions are in terms of your wealth, So it gives us a lot of joyfulness, And then, in order to help and benefit others, we need a lot of resources, internal resources, external resources, The more resource we have externally, internally, the more we are able to give, the more we are able to help, the more we are able to help the more. And in order to have those resources, whether it's external resources, internal resources, those resources come through our own, karma and our own practice from the past, our own merit. And so therefore, the more merit you have, the more resource you have. The more resource you have, the more you are able to help and benefit more people more. And thereby through the practice of generosity, we create more merit, cause and conditions to have more resource in the futures so that we can continue to be more benefit and more help to others. So, and when you practice the generosity, generally speaking, the wealth itself, is kind of not so much meaningful itself, but when you use for a good purpose by practicing generosity and to help others, then you have transformed that something which is not a virtuous, something not so meaningful into something meaningful, something virtuous. Something meaningful, something virtuous, to reduce the suffering and pain of sentient beings. So thereby, it makes that object, you transform that into something meaningful, virtuous, and you also transform your own life into something more meaningful, something more virtuous. Because at the end, we have to leave everything behind anyway. So wouldn't it be much more meaningful if we are able to use it for a better purpose, to reduce the suffering and pain of sentient beings, instead of being wasted later, So those are some of the, in one of the sutras, Buddha said, the benefit are so much that maybe let me read that one. It can be helpful for some people. It says, "O monks, if people knew, as I know, the result of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would they allow the stain of stinginess to obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last morsel, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it. If there was someone to share it with. But monks, as people do not know, as I know, the result of giving and sharing, they eat without giving, having given, and the stain of stinginess obsessing them and take root into their mind. So that is from one of the Buddha's sutras, where Buddha spoke about that. When you really understand how much benefit for others, oneself, everyone's, you will feel very wasteful if you are unable to share with someone, even if it's your last mouthful. So generosity is not about how much you have. It's about how big your heart is. The generosity is not about how rich you are. It's not about how much you have or how little you have. It is all about how big your heart is. How kind, compassionate, how big heart your heart is. And we see all over the world, there are some people who have very little, but who are some of the most generous people. And then there are some people who have so much, who are least generous. So it is not about how much, is how big your heart is. With this sutra, it reminds me of one of the during the earthquake, I think 2015 or 14, in Nepal, and there was I saw a news where one of the journalists from BBC was covering some of those news, and in one of the, village where few people's house collapsed, everything, they lost everything, including the food that they have saved, in their house. And, and they are still trying to find those food, because they didn't have enough food. And there was one old lady, who have lost everything, her house gone, whatever food they had is under the house, whatever little they have saved. But through that, they were able to dig and they were able to find some, and so anyway, and that lady was elderly ladies, elderly mother, was insisting the reporter to come and share that whatever they have left, the little food they were having, that was kind of very kind of inspiring and heart-touching. Here is someone who have lost everything, even the basic foods, and she always has very little, and it happens to be her, that is her lunch or dinner time, and then someone happened to be there and she want to share it. Yeah. And that is how it used to be, like in most of the villages, there is a saying, if someone show up when you are eating something, they will never let someone go away without offering it, whether you know it or not, they will insist, even if it means that they will have to cook for themselves later, but they will actually offer the food to the someone who is traveling or someone who comes to ask for some water or whatever, or something, asking for maybe they are lost, and they are asking about the path. Anyone show up, anyone kinds of knock your house, and you are happen to be eating something, drinking some things, you never turn them back without offering. And I've seen that many times, even in our families, my parents, doing that, they will offer the food for someone and then they will cook it for themselves later, and that kind of attitude is very much alive in many part of the countries, many part of the world. And sometimes, unfortunately, that kind of attitude, that kind of is mostly in very simple, poor villages. Once you go to the big cities, rich people, they don't have same level of that kind of attitude, unfortunately. But what I'm trying to say is, sometimes we feel, I wish I could be more generous, isn't it? And I could be more generous if I could have more. That is how we always feel, I could have been more generous if I could have more. That is our excuse, And that excuse, everyone, if you become a, millionaire, you will still have that excuse. If I could only have a little bit more, I could be more generous. And even if you become billionaire, you will have that same attitude, the same excuse. If I could have a little bit more, I could be more generous. And unless we really train our mind, it's not going to come. Unless we train our mind to be more, strong, big-hearted, more loving, more compassionate, it's not going to come. You are not going to be more generous because you have more. You are not going to be more generous because you have more. It's not going to come. It comes through your mind. It depends on your state of mind, and so, and if we all can become, more, little bit more kind, little bit more compassionate, little bit more, caring, little bit more big-hearted, and if we can practice a little bit more generosity, so many problems in the world can be reduced. So many problems in the world, so many suffering in the world due to lack of, so many things, whether it's food, whether it's, due to lack of food or due to lack of nutritive food, or there is due to lack of, clean drinking water, or it is due to lack of, health support, when you are sick, or it is due to lack of educations. So many sentient beings, so many human beings suffer, so many suffering due to all lack of do that. And if we all can become a little bit generous, sometimes we feel, oh, it is a government job. The government have to take care of them, as though we have no responsibility to solve all these problems. And that is the way the problem is. Everyone is expecting someone to solve the problem, not myself. We all expect someone else to solve the problem. I'm not the one who is solving the problem, but we're always looking for someone to solve the problems. An excuse why we are not solving problem because I'm not government, officials. I'm not in that positions. But imagine those who have more like ourselves, if we can help, even just, it is not going to affect your life. So, it is not going to make your life miserable by being a little bit more generous, But sometimes it's not easy for us to be generous, even with the small things, Sometimes I get very inspired, sometimes I see certain peoples from many parts of the world who are supporting, sponsoring, children's educations, be in Nepal, India, Tibet, or in Africa, wherever, And some of them, they don't have much money, They struggle to pay their basic bills. Not rich people, they struggle to pay their basic bill. Despite that, because they have such a good, big heart, and they want to do something, they want to help, even if it's one person's educations, because that could help the whole families, and that family can help many other families, and the village itself, the country itself. And so, I heard some people, for example, there are certain, I hear, like some people who used to smoke many cigarettes a day, then they cut the cigarette to save $20 or $30 a month. And through that, they support someone's educations. Or someone, maybe if they are drinking, coffee 7 times, 8 times a day, or weeks. So they cut few of those coffees, within the month to save $20, $30, so that they can support someone's education in one part of the world. When I hear that, it's really, really very inspiring. It's very inspiring that they give up, little bit of what they, but it doesn't change, it make their life miserable, but it makes huge difference in other person's life. And one person can make huge difference in so many families, Just to give you example, in my own family, one of my uncle, from my mom's side, 2 uncles, the younger uncle, he was quite successful in his business, All other families are very poor, all poor in the village, But he was quite, youngest was successful, And once he became successful, he wanted to support the whole family. So he has 4 siblings, 1 brother and 3 sisters. My mom was one of them. So he asked each family to send one of their children so that he can train them, that he can support him in their business. He created a group, and through that it becomes successful. And with each children, they support the whole family. One person's changed the whole situations, financial situations of 5 families, And also from those 5 families, again, they have other families that they are supporting and helping, again, to be on their own feet, so they can be more successful in that, And that kind of example, you see so many where, one family member get good education and good job or success in that. And when they have the intention, the motivations to help in others, and they help, and that change whole dynamic not one person, so not just one family, so many, the effect of that, so that is the yeah. I guess I get a little bit distracted, but I think the point was, is not about how much we have. It's not about how much we have. It is more about how big heart we are in terms of being generous. Generosity, or generous, to being generous. So that was what that was the. And lack of external resource shouldn't hinder from being generous. Okay, lack of external resource or material resource shouldn't hinder oneself from being more generous. Even if you don't have one penny, still you can be as generous. Still you can practice generous. Still you can perfect generous, the practice of generosity. Milereva, materially he has nothing, but still he perfected the practice of generosity. He perfected and completed the practice of generosity. Because, is training your mind. It's a training your mind, to be able to give. And when you train your mind, when you have that mind, when you have, you give. Even when you don't have, it's okay, but you have the mind to give. Always wanting to give, always wanting to share. And when you do have something, you will be able to give, you will be able to share it. And if you don't have, you might not have material things to share, to give, but you have that strong, big heart, love, compassion, wishing, I wish I have something to share, wish I could give something, and that kind of mind. And feeling generosity is, feeling abundance, feeling of, feeling that you have more than enough to share and give, So, so that is training the mind. That is the training the mind, yeah, if we don't train our mind, then, even we become millionaire, billionaire, we will not be able to practice generosity. If we train our mind, then, even you have very little, you will still be able to practice generosity and still be able to help and benefit others and support others. So it's all, again, it's all about coming to training the mind. Mm. So that is the benefit and what it means by generosity. Being generous, training in generosity is training your mind to give, as it's mentioned in that verse, training your mind to give without any attachments, without any kind of clinging, grasping, training your mind to give and build up that mind stronger and stronger and stronger, and if you have that strong, generous mind, then again, as Buddha said in that sutra, even you have the last mouthful, you will still want to share it with others because of you're that generous, Therefore, it reminds me again of one of the verses from the Shantidevas, where he says, the attitude that, if I share with others or if I give to others, what will be left for me is the selfish attitude. selfish attitude. On the other hand, the attitude that, if I enjoy everything myself, if I enjoy myself, what will be there left to share and to give to others? That is selflessness attitude and the divine attitude. And that is, so it depends on what kind of attitude we have, For us, we have this attitude, selfish attitude, always thinking, I want to give, I want to share, but if I give, if I share, what will happen to me? What will happen to me next week, next month, next year, when I get older, this and that. And no matter how much you have, you still have that attitude. I mean, I've seen, people who works and who make us, monthly more than many of the families they make whole their life, like in Nepal, But still they have same fear that the very poor people have, same fear that they don't have enough. What will happen if they get sick? What will happen when they get old? All of this fear, and therefore that kind of fear and that kind of worry, that kind of, attitude become obstacle for us to be more generous, from being more generous, from becoming more generous and to be practice more generosity, Of course, it would be great if we can, help all the sentient beings in the world, at least all the human beings in this world, including the animals who are starving. But, even we cannot help all of them, at least we try to help whatever one, even is one, just one sentient beings. That is what we try to help through our practice of generosity. If we can help 10, that is great. If we can help 100, thousands, even better. But even if we cannot, we can try to help even one. That is wonderful, wonderful. Mm. Mm. So, it's training the mind. So in terms of generosity itself, generosity is, the practice of generosity is not only about material things, material wealth, So therefore there is a practice of generosity of, of course, material things, generous material things or material wealth. Then, the generosity of the Dharma, or the generosity of Dharma, in that it includes the generosity of sharing your knowledge, sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience that can help someone when they need that kind of knowledge, when they need that kind of, wisdom, that kind of experience that can. So the sharing of the generosity of the Dharma, and the generosity of, fearlessness, according to many of the scriptures, they talk about lamrims, and that is, practicing generosity by giving protections to those who are in fear, those, whether any sentient beings who are in the fear, giving protections and protecting from their fear, for maybe we can come later, more details later, a little bit more, we can talk a little bit more later, for example, liberating, from being killed, butcher, liberating animals, for example, and thereby helping them to be protect from taking their life and the fear that come from taking of the life, Or sometimes you see, whether it's human beings, sentient beings, of being fearful because they are experiencing some kind of challenges, and trying to help them and to free them from whatever, fear there, because it seems like they are losing their life or they are in danger, Sometimes you see certain insects being water, struggling. You can just put them up, save them, protect them. And for example, another example, and then, the generosity of love, So again, even you might not have any material things to practice generosity. Even you might not have enough educations or enough knowledge or dharma, to share and give. Even you might not have the physical ability to protect someone, but still you can practice loving, the practice of generosity of love, generosity of practicing the love, And sometime, not only sometime, the most important is that love, for any sentient beings. More than the material things, sometimes love is the one who really need it, And in this, our degenerating, more modern world, when we have so much, when we become too materialistic, when we become too materialistic, it's all running out of materialist things. Everyone's forgetting about the love. Parents have no time to express love for the children. Children has no time to show and express the love for their parents. Friends do not have time to show love and to express, to love, to show, to feel, to show, to express the love, and thereby the world is becoming, people are feeling more and more lonely. People are feeling more and more sense of loneliness, feeling of nobody really cares about them, nobody really loves them. And that is having a very, very strong impact in the society, in their emotional, mental health, and that affect them physical health as well. And that is becoming more prominent in the modern world now, more and more prominent, more and more in that. And the society is experiencing the result of that, a lot of health issues, emotional, mental health issues. And because people are feeling that way, and because what they need, and sometimes you can also see that with the animals as well, You can see with the pets as well, It's really how much appreciation they have when you show love, compassion, caring, Of course, they appreciate the food, but sometimes they appreciate the attentions, the paddings, affections more, And that is even more so for the human beings. That is even more so for the human beings. And so, we can always practice and show and express love and compassion, and that is the generosity of love, So we need to make more effort. For that, we have no excuse that I don't have enough wealth. Okay. I don't have enough wealth, we have no excuse for that. So we have to make effort. We have to make effort to show and to feel, to show, to express love, compassion, not only within our families, within our friends, within our community, within our colleagues, a workplace, within anyone whom you meet in your life, sometime while you are walking, while you are, whatever, exercising, whatever you do, when you meet someone, to be able to show that, can have a strong impact on someone's mind, especially when they are going through difficult times, So those are the kind of the generally, four type of generosity we can practice. In terms of material objects, I think, I don't have to, we don't have to talk too much, we already kind of discussed a little bit, It can be nice, some people do that, including my youngest brother, he does also that, and I know many people also does that, you try to save all the small changes and some others monthly put in somewhere, and then over the year, then he tried to help those who are in the needs, those who are on the street, giving them a blanket in the cold winters, those in others, homeless, so helping them with the food, helping them, so it can be, sometimes, for example, if we have to give few hundreds, it is hard to give that, it's hard to let it go, how to let it go, even maybe $10, $10, even $5, we struggle a little bit, but maybe if we started to put, $1 a day, or maybe $1 a week somewhere, and then you kind of, over the time, that will be quite big, and then you can support, one of the cause, to relieve of certain problems, pain, sufferings, whether it is through organization, whether through individuals, however, and so, those are the one of the things that can be, we can, because it's all kind of in mind, it's all training your mind, it's all training your mind. Sometimes we have to trick our mind, for the good things. Of course, we trick our mind for the bad things always, we don't have to put effort, our mind trick us. Just as I said, this excuse why we are unable to practice generosity, our mind give all these different excuse, all this excuse, and that's tricking our mind, and then our mind believe that was the case, and then I can't be generous because of this and this and this and this, all of that. But sometimes also we can trick our mind for the good purpose and for the good cause as well, and that is part of the training of your mind, Anyway, so the practice and the practice of Dharma, sharing the knowledge, of course, we try to share the Dharma not because we want to convert someone, we want to force someone to be practice Dharma, but whenever there's opportunity, when someone's interested, when someone ask you questions, when there is an opportunity to share that can be helpful, beneficial, then we try to share the Dharma knowledge, the Dharma wisdom, and experience that can be helpful, beneficial, then we try to share. And that sharing, giving, that is a generosity, sharing your knowledge. So not only Dharma, also other knowledge, whatever knowledge we have that can help them, whatever different knowledge, whatever different wisdom, whatever different experience we have that can be helpful, beneficial to someone else, especially when they are interested, when they need it, when they ask for it. So we try to share, we try to give, and that is the generosity of the knowledge, Dharma, and that especially the sharing of the Dharma is even more better generosity than the generosity of material wealth, material things. Because if we share the Dharma knowledge, and if someone really get it, and if they really implement it, that could change so much. That could change so much. With the material things, it can help them for one day, for 1 week, 1 month, but maybe they might find out in same situations endlessly, So it feels like never ending. But if we can really share and someone really get the Dharma knowledge, and if they really get it and they really apply it, then that could change whole their life. And from Buddhist point of view, life after life, but at least in that life, in terms of how they handle their situation, in terms of how they deal with their life, more positively, more better way, they get these tools, they learn the tools, when they face any kind of challenges, difficult in their life, that they have the tools to deal with that much more better. And so, even if we don't talk about enlightenment, even we don't talk about future life, even in this life, that will give them such a great tools to deal with their life, especially when they are facing difficulties, challenges. In relation to the material, there is in one of the sutras, and Buddha give a, when you practice generosity, of course, if you have enough to share, you have enough to give, you try to share and practice the generosity. And if you don't have the resource to give, resource to share, or maybe you are too stingy, even you have enough resource, because of our too strong stinginess, we feel like we don't have enough to share, in those cases, then, you can try to send them to someone who has more resource and who is a delight, who will be delightful or joyful to help. So you send to someone. If you cannot help yourself, then you send to someone who have enough resource and who will be joyful and happy to help. And even you cannot find anyone who have enough resource or who will be happy to help, then, Buddha advised, then you try to, explain, that the meaningless of having an attachment and greediness to any kind of things, material things, and so on. And through your skillful means, through your wisdom, and through your compassion, if you are able to do that, and if that person fully get it, then they will be less attached, less grasping. And if you have that, then, even though it might not solve their physical discomfort and physical suffering, but it will help them to overcome the mental mental pain and mental sufferings that arises because of the strong attachments. So that is one of the kind of the advice and the practice that Buddha gave in terms of generosity. If you can, then you try to do that. If you cannot, then you try to help them by sending someone away. Even if it's not, that is not possible, still, it seems very wiseful and skillful means. So either way, we try to help them. Basically, so in that way, it seems like Buddha is saying you have no excuse not to help them in one way or another way. If you cannot help this way, try to help this way. If you cannot help that way, you have to help that way, Mm. And then, it is said the generosity of the Dharma and education is much more powerful than the generosity of the material wealth or things. And then we talk about the generosity of fearlessness. We talk about that, saving life, protecting from the fear, and that, and we'd also talk about the generosity, loving kindness, compassion. And then according to the verse that we just went through, is the practice of generosity of body, wealth, and the virtues for 3 times, But again, we can also do that too, So in terms of the material, we talk about in terms of the body, of course, at the very beginning for us, very beginner practitioners, is never encouraged to give your body. We're discouraged to give that. But when you progress in your path, on the both of the path, as you make progress, you enter the both of path, and within the path, you enter through the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeings, and then when you enter the both sort of paths, such as path of seeing, when you have a direct realization of selflessness, and when you have so strong bodhicitta mind, at that time, you are allowed and you are encouraged to give your own life, your own body, if it is needed. If it's needed. When you reach that kind of, and at that point, because of such an incredible bodhicitta mind, incredible strong direct realization of selflessness, the bodhisattvas, even when they chop their part of the body to give to others if it's needed, or to give their organs while they are still alive, or if they need to give their whole body, their whole life, they will easily be able to give without any hesitations, but with a joyfulness and also without pain because of that. And so in those situations, then that definitely it is allowed and is encouraged, but it is not kind of encouraged to do that when you are still on beginning stages. But even if we cannot practice that at the moment, but we can still train our mind, develop strong courages. May I be able to practice in the future as I progress on the path, even if I have to give my own life, my own body, may I be able to give it, And so again, training your mind to be more courageous, and so that with the time on the path, then we should. And then the generosity of the virtues, Of course, we have created many virtues in the past. We continue to create virtues, and we will be continuing the many virtues in the futures. So then we dedicate all of that virtues for whatever, transforming them in whatever sentient beings need, For those who need like for example, one of the dedication that we do from the Shantideva, that kind of compiled by His Holiness from the Shantideva at the end of the teachings, like that, due to all my virtues, may all these virtues become cause and condition for those who are starving, them to have food. Those who are, cold, may they have enough warm clothes or shelters. Those who are heart, may they have enough. So transforming and dedicating all our virtues into whatever individual sentient beings' needs are, whatever individual physical comfort or physical needs, whatever emotional, mental needs, those who need love, giving them love, those who need sense of understanding, giving them those understanding, those who need patience, giving them patience, who need compassion, or so providing, giving them whatever their needs, whatever happiness, whatever their needs are. So that way, so when we practice the generosity, like every practice, the motivation is very important. To have the right motivation is very important. Sometimes the right motivations come easily, sometimes it doesn't come easily. Sometimes you might feel pressure to give. Do you get it? Not because you really want to give, but you feel pressure to give. So when you feel pressure to give, for whatever reason, when you give, then that motivation is not pure motivations of giving, of generous. So when you notice that, I'm giving, but I'm being filled to give, and it's not coming from my mind fully. When you notice that, then you try to change your motivations. Try to change your motivations and try to feel joyfulness, happiness in giving. If I support, if I give, it will help that person's, it will help that person's families, it will help that organizations, and that through that organization, through that center, that it will help many other sentient beings. And so by trying to reflect, contemplate a little bit on that, and then, giving in order to be benefit, even not only that person's, only not individual, but to be benefit to each and every sentient beings that I'm going to give, So you try to consciously try to develop more better and more bodhicitta motivations, more stronger bodhicitta motivation as much as possible. If you do that, then your practice becomes much more powerful. In terms of giving, it might be same, but because of your motivation, bodhicitta motivation, that practice become million times bigger than if you don't have bodhicitta motivations. As Shantideva again explained, if your bodhicitta motivations for the benefit of all sentient beings, with that motivation, if you give one grain to one, and even just one grain one time to a small insect, for example, that act becomes bodhisattva practice. That act of giving one grain just one time becomes bodhisattva's act, bodhisattva practice, by the power of that bodhicitta mind. And you accumulate equal number of merit or the virtues as equal number of the sentient beings, because you dedicated for all sentient beings, you give for the benefit of all sentient beings. Instead of you giving for benefit of just yourself. Do you get it? If you give for benefit of just yourself, you create only one merit, one virtues. But if you give that same for benefit of 10 people, 10 merit. If you do that for the benefit of 100, then it's 100 times. And so when you do that with the motivation to benefit all sentient beings, then that practice becomes that much powerful. And also that becomes real bodhisattva's practice. And that becomes really the perfection. Then it really transforms our practice generosity into the perfection of generosity, the bodhisattva's practice and path. So that through the motivations. And in terms of when you're giving, we try to give without any kind of expectations. When we support, when we help through practice such as generosity, we try to do that without any clinging, without any attachment, without any conditions, without any expectations. We just help because whether it's individual, whether it's center, organizations, because they need help and we can be helped. And so we try to help. That is all, you know. So because if we have expectations, then, you know, even at the very beginning, we started a practice with good intention, motivations, but still when there is some expectations, and when those expectations are not met, you can be disappointed later. Do you get it? You might be disappointed for helping someone, and that is not good. You know, you are being disappointed for helping someone. You should be rejoicing for helping someone, whether it's an individual or organization. You should be grateful and joyful and rejoicing for having able to help someone. But sometimes instead of rejoicing, it becomes disappointment and unhappy for having done that, having helped. And that why it turned into, at the very beginning, you seem to have some good intention, but why it turns sour, you know, now it's sour. You are disappointed, you are upset and unhappy because of disappointment, because your expectations are not met. Your expectations are not met. And also when you become disappointment like that, then it becomes obstacle for us to be able to help in the futures, you know. It doesn't give you so much encouragement. You started to become suspicious and, you know, and all kind of things, you know, suspicious, not sure, not trusting, whether you should help, not help, whether all of this comes, so it becomes obstacle in many different ways. And so, but if you give without expectations, you know, you wanted to, they needed a help and you want to help, that is it, you know. You can only hope, you know, that they're used properly in the right way. But even if they were not used well as you expected, you know, you just have to let it go, you know. The things you wanted to help and you help, that is the key, you know. Sometimes that happens for us a lot, you know, when we're trying to help, you know, turning into kind of becoming sour and disappointment and all of that because of such expectations. So when you try to help, trying to give without expectations is very important factor for our practice to become more joyful all the time, you know, more joyful all the time, you know. Mm. And when you have joyful all the time, then definitely that it will be also that will give you more inspiration and to help as well, and continue to practice. And then when you do practice generosity, you know, again, one important factor is to be able to practice and give in terms of actions respectfully. You know, when we give, being very respectful, you know, very respectful in terms of actions. So not only the good motivation, but when we try to help someone, when we try to give someone, share something respectfully. And, you know, so many great teachers, lead by such a great examples, Take an example of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for many of you who have not met him, but you might have noticed, but like, I noticed that mostly, one time we went to a pilgrimage in Tibet, for 21 days. So we are together day and night, because sometimes his teachings goes until midnight, until 2, and so a lot of time together. And that is when I observed and I saw day to day, day to day how he does things, day to day. Every day is like one day of his activities and all of that, So, whenever he make any offerings to a holy object, or whenever he make any kind of generous giving to someone who is in the street, or someone who needs help, one thing, he takes time. He takes time, to generate the intentions that he's offering on the behalf of all sentient beings. That he's making this generosity on the behalf of every sentient beings. And when we are there, he will also encourage us to think that way, that whether you are making, whether he's making, that he's making on the behalf of all sentient beings, for the benefit of all sentient beings. Take time to reflect, contemplate, and when he gives, hand folded very respectfully, bowing down, bowing down, hand folded and bowing down, even people who are, on the street. On sometimes you see other people, they just throw it. Do you get it? They give, but they throw it, or they don't, the way they give, is not so respectful. And so even though you are helping, but sometimes that person feel hurt the way you gave, because it's not so disrespectful. You give, but something kind of disrespectful, So when you give respectfully, not only you are helping that person's financially or materially, but it can help them emotionally, mentally, spiritually, because they feel like someone respect me. And especially when it comes from someone who has such high positions, status. When someone respects you so much, you feel good about yourself. You don't feel yourself of shit about yourself. Do you get it? When people started to treat you disrespectfully, then you might think I'm a shit, Everyone's treating me like a shit. I must be a shit. I'm good for nothing. But when everyone started to treat them respectfully, then slowly they will start to feel good about themselves. Oh, everyone is being nice to me. Everyone's being respectful to me. I must not be so bad, So the effect that it can have on emotional, mental level is huge. How we even when we practice the giving, how we do that in terms of our actions, and then of course, trying to bring the wisdom while we are practicing the generosity, So thereby then we bring both method, because generosity is part of the practice of method. Then we also apply bring the wisdom by seeing, for example, whatever things that I'm giving, or practicing generosity, that object is not truly existence. The act of giving itself, the practice or the act of giving itself is not truly existence. And the person, me, the subject who is practicing or who is giving, that itself is not truly existence. By seeing that, so the objects, the actions, the subjects, by seeing all of them are not truly existence. So while you give it, if you can think that way, even for a very short period, by thinking they are, all of them are non truly existence, they all are empty of truly existence, then again, it helps us not to be so proud, unhealthy pride and arrogant about our practice. Do you get it? Sometimes when we practice such a practice, giving generosity, oh, I'm such a generous person. We might feel that, I'm such a generous person. And then you see someone, oh, that person is so ungenerous person. So you already started to look down on that person. You already judge that person. You already judge that person. You already kind of look down on that person. You already put that person something. Why you put that? Because you think you are more generous than that person. That person is less generous and you are more generous in taking in this as time. And then again, that practice lead you to be more arrogant instead of helping us to be less arrogant. But when you bring that wisdom into your the practice that you are the practice of generosity, there's nothing to hold on, is not truly existent. It's nothing so special as you feel. The practice itself and you yourself who is doing the practice. And through that, then it can become more beneficial, more helpful. And then at the end, we try to dedicate the virtues from our practice of generosity, extensive, vast dedications as much as you can, you can dedicate, to cultivate the conventional and ultimate bodhicitta within the mind stream of oneself and all sentient beings. We can dedicate to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. We can dedicate for the well-being of all sentient beings. We can dedicate for the source of all sentient beings' happiness, the Dharma, to flourish and to remain until each and every sentient being is enlightened. We can dedicate for all the great masters, so His Holiness Kabir Lama Sopa Rinpoche and all the other great masters, holy beings, to have long, healthy life, so they can continue to show the path, guide, so they can continue to inspire through their great teachings, through great examples, so so we try to do dedication at the end. So that way we bring the right motivations in the beginnings, and then we try to practice in respectfully through actions, and trying to bring the wisdom while we practice, and at the end we try to dedicate in that way. Then that practice become much more powerful, and much more effective. If we miss some of those elements or the condition, then the practice become less powerful, less powerful. Yeah. So of course we want to make the practice as much powerful as possible, isn't it? As best as possible. And that is how to make our practice most best and most powerful, most effective. So maybe I might take a question. I think I saw one question here. Sometimes my mind tricks me into not being generous to those I think don't deserve it, or to those I don't like. Yeah, I think that is same to all of us. There's not, we don't like, we have not so difficulty being generous to someone we like. For those we like, even when they say they don't need, we want to give. Isn't that case? Like your families, your friends. Or they say, oh, don't bring anything, but you still bring something. I don't need anything, and still you want to give something, isn't it? It's easy to practice generous in those ones. But of course, it's more difficult to those who are, for the strangers, and especially for those whom we dislike, for whatever reasons, and for whatever reason that we feel they don't deserve, for whatever reason, we might have different reason why they don't deserve so like that, definitely, So, but again, we have to think, it's not about whether I like it or not. It's all about whether they need the help, whether they need the help. And by that help, whether that will help to reduce their pain and suffering or not. That is the key. So we let go of whether that, when you see someone needs a help, and if you have a resource to help, even we might not be able to help them to, relief of the problem completely, but even if we can help a little bit to reduce, even very little, very small amount of that, if we have resources, if we can, then, we should let our mind to think that part instead of, oh, I don't like that person. Instead we think, oh, it's not about whether I like or not, but it's about, whether that sentient beings needs the help or not, and that person really needs help, and I'm fortunate to have the condition or resource to be able to help, even if it's small, And so with that, so that is training your mind. Instead of looking at from that perspective, we look from the other perspective, and then, by helping that person's pain and suffering get reduced. And by that person's pain and suffering being reduced, that can have a strong impact with that person's, how they manage their life, in their days, weeks, and life, So not only we are able to help that small, but it can have a strong impact in long term as well. Sometimes we don't know, our very small act of helping someone. For example, maybe who knows, someone even who work very hard, of course, because sometimes we have all kind of people, sometimes we are lazy people, sometimes we are really hardworking people, and but even with the good hardworking people, sometimes things doesn't go right way, sometimes no matter how hard work, they find a lot of challenges, whether we call karma or conditions, whatever can come together, and sometimes they might end up being, for example, in a street, and they need some help in that certain moments, a certain time, and once they are able to come out of that point, then maybe again, so giving them that little help they need to come out of that situation and to be on the path. We don't know how much our help will do that. We don't know whether that will do or not, but definitely sometimes that small act can have a very strong impact on someone's life. It is not just that one small instant of helping them, only that, but that can have a very, very strong impact for their whole life. So being aware and recognizing that, all of that, and then through that, so that we have to put our mind in that directions when we are in that kind of state. So again, it's training the mind to be in that way. Okay. Any other questions? If nobody has questions, then yeah, we do the dedications. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see form and the deaf hear sound. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and those wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever disease there in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid. May those bound be free. May the powerless find power. And may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful day, wonderful rest of the week, wonderful rest of the month, wonderful rest of the year, wonderful rest of the life.